Hello, welcome back to How AI Built This. Firstly, as with every episode, it is brought to you by the best technology recruitment company in the world, Cathcart Associates. And yes, they did pay me to say that. Seriously though, we're an independent organisation who for the last 10 years have hired people with no recruitment experience, trained them up, and essentially given them opportunity of a lifetime to make a career. So I'm very proud to have played a small part in that success, and I'm very much looking forward to the next 10 years. So big hats off to Cathcart Associates. Today on the podcast we have Luke Grimes. Luke is someone I've known for a very long time. In fact, he was one of the first people I got to know very well setting up Cathcart Manchester. So we expanded into the northwest, and Luke was a great help. He's very well connected. He ran his own tech company and is an all-round good guy. So other than many nights out together, he introduced us to some of his friends, and as it transpired, we helped grow his business at the time. So a very interesting guy, some great stories. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
If anyone skipped intro, we've got Luke Grimes on, who's the head of digital services at ANS. We'll get to that though. We normally start on education and what people did to get where they are. You've got an interesting story. So you didn't go to uni?
No, I didn't go to university. I think the only thing I did well in school was around business studies. So rather than going and sort of learning that in uni, I thought, well, I may as well just start one.
I'm not going to lie, you didn't miss out on much. I did business studies at uni, and you probably learned a hell of a lot more running your own business than I did theoretically talking about it at uni. So you did alright. Yeah, so was that kind of the plan then? So you finished uni, finished school, realised that business studies was the thing you enjoyed.
I think
so why bother?
Just like anyone else, I just didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I was always just quite excited about starting a business of some sort, but didn't even really understand what kind of business I wanted to start. And having obviously a passion for technology, I thought I'd start there with a friend of mine from school, and we sort of hit the ground running and started the business in IT support before eventually getting into software and product development, which is sort of what I'm still doing 10 years later.
It's definitely worked out then. Yeah, I remember, so we've known each other for a while, but I remember you told me that you kind of basically taught yourself everything. And I don't mean just from running a business point of view, but like you taught yourself how to code, like you kind of just basically used that entrepreneurial drive to work it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the internet is you can pretty much just teach yourself, well, especially like some of the, the more modern skills that businesses are looking for around data science or AI or programming. A lot of the information that you'd need to basically do those jobs quite well is, you can find it on the internet. And myself and my friend, when we were starting the business, we that's where we looked really to teach ourselves the skills we needed in order to build software.
And was that quite a fun way of doing it, do you think sometimes it gets lost when people do like 4-year really structured degrees, or they only learn from like the people they're working with or whatever? Like, it was quite a good way of doing it. It's just you kind of like mix and match and just find a way of doing it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean back then in my early 20s there was really like no risk. There was nothing to lose as such. Just renting an apartment in Manchester. So didn't have a family, didn't have a mortgage or anything else like that. So
if you can cover the rent, you're all right.
Yeah, weren't really reliant on having guaranteed salary coming in every month, I suppose. If the question is like, do I think university or being self-taught is, which one's better? I don't think there is a right answer, because it just depends what's right for you. But I just wasn't really keen on any of the sort of vocational courses. I didn't necessarily know whether I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or
I think they're the only people that really know what to do at uni. Like, I had mates that they needed the 5 A's to get into being like medicine, law. Like, they were the only people I knew that had a clue about what they wanted to do. Everyone else like me just did what you, the opposite of what you did, but like went and did like business because it was kind of general.
I genuinely think it like. And unless there's a few lucky people that really know what they want to do at such a young age, but I think for most people, until you're sort of in your mid-20s, you literally don't know what you want to do. I love what I do now. I absolutely love the sector I work in. I love the business that I work for. I love what I do day to day, but I didn't sort of really figure that out until I was probably in my mid-20s. Yeah, sort of you sort of grow into things, I think, and grow to love things. And I think younger people that are coming out of uni, they don't really have. They're not really. It's not easy for them to find out that thing until they've sort of experimented a lot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think you need to experience things before you really know what you want to do. That is one of the things that drives me crazy when people in data and software development, they insist on degrees, and we've had this chat on the podcast before, but there's so many good examples of great self-taught people.
I think 100%. Some of the best people I've worked with have been self-taught.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a passion to be good at something, you will end up being good at it. When it comes to digital and technology, it moves at such a rate that I think in some ways it can be better than having a structured degree which is delivered over 4 years, because of the rate of pace of change is.
Yeah, you end up behind, don't you? Well, you can end up behind.
The curriculum could be out of date, or would be out of date, especially if it's written once every 4 years. As I said, I don't have too much experience about how those courses are delivered, but
it could be. Yeah, I mean, you definitely learn a lot more. I mean, like what you said, you learn a lot running a business, and it kind of segues on nicely to. You now work for a pretty large organisation. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of the lessons you learned from running your own business were applicable here, and then I'm also sure you've learned loads.
Yeah, no, certainly. Like the business I had in my early 20s was, a relatively small one in comparison to where I am now, and working with ANS has been great for me because you learn how enterprise organisations operate, from a business model point of view, from an operating model point of view, and the challenges that they face are obviously completely different to the ones you'd see within an SME market.
I think do you think it's been beneficial that you've seen both those things now?
Yeah,
so you can talk to small businesses, you can talk to massive enterprise organisations, and you can kind of you almost feel like both pain points.
Yeah, no, definitely. The benefit of being small is you can be agile, right? And you can pick up and experiment with new things and new technologies much easier and much quicker than you can in an enterprise environment. But the projects that I work on now are much more exciting, I think, because of the scale and complexity and the number of users you can often have an impact on. Yeah, it's just, I think it's different.
Yeah. And so what does the job actually mean? So we said head of digital services for ANS. If anyone doesn't know what ANS do, what do they do? But also, what does your job mean?
Yes, ANS we're a cloud and digital service provider. 300 staff. We've got 2 offices, Manchester and London.
Nice.
Customer base is split between private and public sector. So we work a lot around higher education. We've got over 100 NHS customers. And we do a lot with local government, but then on the private sector side, we've got customers such as Jet2, Costa Coffee, really, really varied set of customers. And the kind of projects we deliver across digital are typically leverage your Industry 4 technologies. So it's AI, IoT, big data, cloud native application development, to deliver business transformation and fundamentally achieve business outcomes for our customers.
Nice. And
the cloud side of things is, I suppose, more of your traditional IT services, so around connectivity, networking, hosting, and that breadth and depth of service offering we have at ANS is quite good, because it means that we're sort of not really limited in the kind of service we can deliver to customers.
Yeah, okay, nice. Given that this is an AI podcast, loosely, where does your job cover some of the AI work? So I know that you've sat on loads of panels recently, you've had some posts about AI, so I know it's an area of interest, but where does that come into it?
I suppose my job really is to help customers navigate the commercial challenges of user-centric application design and build. So what that effectively means is helping customers define an early set of requirements for a digital project vision.
Yeah, okay.
And helping them take that idea from inception through to market. Where AI comes into that, I suppose, is it if a customer has a business problem or an opportunity that they want to realise, again, my job is, I suppose, to look at what technologies are available and map that to, put together a solution that could help them potentially solve that business problem. And AI might be one of the components that sort of slots into that. As an example, working with a university to help them understand the likely grade outcome that a student might get.
Yeah, okay.
And how would we do that? It's about connecting the relevant data sources into a common data platform in the cloud, such as attendance, feedback on local university services, whether it be previous grade results, how many books they've taken out of the library, for example. If these are on decline, you might be able to use predictive analytics in the cloud to give a prediction on their likely grade outcome.
I'm glad you didn't do that for me, because I would feel badly on attendance, books out of the library.
It's good because it costs universities quite a lot of money every time a student leaves. So if they're using predictive analytics to understand the likely grade outcome of a student, or whether they're likely to drop out of university, they've got that visibility then to perhaps intervene if they want to.
Yeah, they can grab it before the person leaves.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Another really cool project we did recently was actually here at the head office.
Manchester Science Park, for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, so we were trying to solve the parking problem. So when you're looking at a car parking bay, if you're looking to a car parking environment, and you're looking to figure out the number of car parking spaces that are available.
Yeah.
Traditionally, you would have to dig up the tarmac and put a sensor in the ground, and then connect that over a network.
Yeah, and that's one of the kind of flashes saying like spaces available type thing.
Yeah, it's just a sensor that sits under the tarmac, and then you need to change the battery within that sensor every like 15 years.
Oh.
And each sensor costs quite a lot of money.
Yeah, I bet.
So if you've got 10,000 car parking spaces, like a large hospital, for example,
it's not going to work.
It's not really going to be viable as a solution.
No.
So instead, what we did was we installed a camera outside the exterior of the building, and trained a machine learning model to identify what a car looks like, and then what a car parking bay looks like,
nice,
and then what the car looks like in the bay and out of the bay. And we actually had loads of challenges along the way. For example, if it rained and there was a puddle on the ground, it would show a reflection of the vehicle. Oh. The ML model would think there's two cars in the same spot. Just like blow up. Go crazy. Yeah, it was. But we sort of got through these teething problems, and then eventually we were able to, using a machine learning model and one camera installed on the exterior of the building, we were able to see the number of spaces which were available in real time. And then to take that a step further, we wanted to try and figure out whether we could perhaps understand whether a car parking space would be free next week. So you're looking at the future car parking spaces available.
How do you do that?
So this is where you're using the cloud services that either Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services provide, and you'd be connecting again the relevant data sources required in order to achieve that. For example, we connected in our HR software. So if I'm on holiday, my car parking space is likely to be free. Then we connected open source data sets such as the Met Office. So if it's snowing, people are less likely to perhaps come into work, and more likely to work from home.
It's quite an apt time to be talking about working from home, because the car park's going to be empty soon.
Or like meeting information as well.
Yeah, okay. So if you've got something in your calendar off-site, it knows you're not going to be in. Well, you might not. Be in the space.
You might be off-site with a customer, or you might be in the London office. So you can basically get all these relevant data sets, structure them semantically in a data platform in the cloud.
Yeah.
And then, let's say we're looking at Microsoft, for example. You would use the Azure ML Studio has got a load of really, really good, basically neural networks that you can leverage to understand to understand things like predictive analytics or pattern recognition. There's loads of different tools and services in there that you can use.
Did you have to train the models on because there's so many different variations of cars? Like, how clever is it at noticing like vans, 4x4s, motorbikes, scooters? Like, did you have to just cover off all the bases? So
certain things like easier to consume, I guess, because like when it comes to cars, again, there's a lot of like open source image data sets of vehicles.
Yeah, people have needed to do like car recognition for other projects.
Exactly, yeah. So things like cars or animals or numbers and things like that. Like there are a lot of really good open source data sets that you can use, such as images, and load that into your model. Because AI is only as good as the data that you give it.
Yeah.
The more data, the more accurate it should be, in theory, as long as it's structured correctly. But like we're generating more and more data every year. I think Satcher from Microsoft said like 80% of the world's data was generated in the last 12 months.
Yeah, that number keeps going up as well. You remember they first started using that statistic, and it was definitely like 50%, and now it's like 80%. I've got the perfect customer for you guys for using that AI car parking thing. We've got a client that we go and see quite a lot. It's getting like beyond a joke. Like, people have to come in earlier and earlier because they've filled a car park. They're parking on the street. They're parking on the road.
Sure.
Like it's craziness.
It is. It's like I think a very big problem for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I think when you go out of town a little bit, you think like we'll have a car park, all the staff will love it. But then when you keep growing, obviously everyone keeps bringing their car in, and then it actually becomes an issue.
You can take those kind of things a lot further as well by like looking at the end-to-end user experience, thinking how could you really wrap a digital service around that sort of capability.
Yeah.
And then you can start looking at things like wayfinding as well. So maybe when you arrive to a location, you have an application which can direct you to a specific car park, and then a specific car parking bay. You might have multiple car parks.
Yeah.
Again, coming to a hospital, looking at a hospital as an example, they often have multiple car parks, and certainly lots of different bays, and navigating that can be a challenge. And if you can get patients in and out of a hospital faster, what kind of impact does that have on KPIs such as patient wait time, for example?
Yeah. Also, just making the whole hospital experience more like not enjoyable, because no one likes going to hospital, but like as a visitor as well, like not making that more stressful than it has to be.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
a relatively simple bit of technology once you've got the data. It's pretty cool. Is part of your job telling clients what's not possible as well? Do you find that? So I think obviously with the size of ANS customers it's slightly different, but I know that when people are doing AI projects, sometimes you'll get a customer that will come to you and ask for some AI because it's in the news.
Yeah.
And they've seen you on a panel talking about AI.
Sure.
So do they then just expect something like magical?
To be honest, sometimes customers will want to understand what the art of the possible is when you're looking at, I suppose, those next gen technologies like AI as an example. But often I don't think it's productive to start with the technology and look for problems to solve. The technology is almost irrelevant, and understanding the business problem, the business challenge, the business opportunity is really what matters. Because you might not need any technology to solve a business process or a people. It could be a people problem. It could be a systems problem.
Is that where you come in like early? Is that you work out what is the problem, and then talk about it, and then come up with various solutions that may well involve technology.
Effectively.
Well, it probably will involve technology given who you work for, but it doesn't always have to, like you said.
Often you might have let's say a business problem, business challenge, and you might have a hypothesis to potentially solve that problem, and then you could define a project vision. And then you would effectively try to go to market with as little as possible to test that assumption, because you only really can prove your assumption when the product or the new service is in the hands of the end user, and you can test that and make a data-driven decision. And that's why sort of lean methodologies and agile works really, really well when you are working on sort of more innovative digital projects. Ones which often you want to start with sort of a minimum viable product or proof of concept,
like constant iterations after that.
Obviously like the way you would deliver a digital project is very different to how you deliver a lot of, say, large scale cloud migrations or infrastructure projects. And agile methodologies are not always well suited.
How dare you? Everyone says agile is amazing. You're absolutely bang on.
And other project management methodologies can be well suited.
100%.
Depends what you're doing, really.
Do you quite like working somewhere that has no like affinity to certain technology. So like the fact that you can go into a company and the best solution might be something you've never used, or it might be something that you know inside and out, but the whole point is the best thing for that problem.
Yeah, I mean, ANS, we have really strong relationships with both AWS and Microsoft Azure.
Yeah.
And the plethora of services, tools and technologies that both of those vendors provide is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So we are
spending billions between them.
Oh yeah, like it's insane. They're continuously bringing new products to market, and we're one of the leading UK partners. We're actually an MSP, and what that effectively means is that we are a trusted delivery partner for both vendors.
Nice.
Being agnostic within that, I do feel like we are. I would describe us as agnostic in terms of the technologies that we can use and deliver. And coming back to the headcount which I mentioned earlier, the 300 people that work here at ANS, there's a 2-to-1 ratio between technical and sales.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a lot of different skill sets within the organisation.
Yeah.
And if you're working on quite a large scale solution, let's say it's a smart building or a smart hospital, let's say, that's going to encompass a lot of different technologies, a lot of different consultants are going to be required to deliver a solution like that.
Yeah.
Right the way from procuring, installing and connecting sensors throughout the hospital through to cloud native application development and product design and data engineering. There's like a lot of different people and components involved in order to deliver something like that, and that's quite exciting, and it's great to be part of I suppose the end-to-end capability that we can deliver.
Yeah, that's one of those things that you just like, it's just the harsh truth of it, that if you work for a small business, you're not going to get the like huge hospital IoT projects, because there's so much involved that you just couldn't.
Not all of it. You might
get a part.
Yeah, you might get.
But
you
get to be involved from like the first meeting with that NHS body, trust, hospital, whatever, all the way through to delivery.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the really exciting projects I've done this year is working with a greenfield university, the first of its kind in 40 years. And the reason that's been exciting is because there hasn't been any sort of legacy enterprise IT sort of landscape to have to consider.
That's rare.
Very rare. So we effectively worked with them to design what a blueprint of a sort of a next gen university would look like from an IT and digital point of view.
That's awesome.
What available technologies can we use to drive the best possible student learner teaching experience.
That's quite cool as well, because universities are by nature quite they're quite historic. So some of them have been around for so long that changing things is actually quite hard.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And not because they don't want to, maybe just because they're massive. And
it's the symptom of, I think, a lot of large businesses. The bigger you get, the harder the ship is to turn, and
100%.
The more you have within your application estate and your IT landscape, as that becomes more and more complex, and perhaps the organisation has grown through acquisition, it becomes very, very difficult.
Then you've got like two systems coming in, and
it's difficult to maintain that visibility and address technical debt, and that's why that was a particularly exciting project for me. But
I bet.
Again, a lot of sort of examples of within that.
You've spoken on a lot of panels as well, and you've had kind of, I remember this, I think it was even before ANS, you sat in a panel in Manchester about AI, and that was at the point where we were probably at the peak of it back then, so it was maybe 3 years ago, 4 or 4 years ago, where everyone was just going crazy for AI.
Sure.
And I think your point on that one, if I remember rightly, is like, it's already here, like it'll be alright. And like you kind of calmed the room down a little bit, because it was getting a little bit like, I don't know, like a little bit hysterical. Yeah, a
lot of people worry that AI will take their jobs.
We talk about this all the time. Like, what do you think? Before I tell you what I think.
In the short term, it will create a lot more jobs.
Yep.
In fact,
agreed.
In the long term, I mean, define long term, but eventually we're going to see more and more and more automation.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean people are going to be out of work, because people will get retrained, reskilled, and I think the hardest things for AI to truly automate are around things such as creativity.
Anything that requires human contact.
Yeah.
Just now, maybe not exclusively, but if you need to speak to a human, and there's a decision to be made, that might not change that much. Like, I think it'll take away a lot of the initial stuff. If you think about it from like a help desk or a support query, you could probably get the first couple of stages done using like chatbot, AI, something like that. But eventually you're going to need to speak to someone.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot in that space. We do a lot of sort of we do a lot of chatbot development, whether it be first line IT support, on IT service desks, or whether it be chatbots in finance and banking around customer service, etc. And chatbots are great.
Huge one,
Chatbots are great because they're just a really human-centric way of having a conversation with someone.
I've been tracked by loads of chatbots, convinced I was speaking to someone.
Yeah, and I think as technology gets better and as product development gets better, it's becoming more and more difficult to understand the difference between a human on the other end of a phone and a chatbot. But like you said, AI has been around. Well, the term AI has been around since the 50s, coined by a guy called John McCarthy at the Dartmouth conference, and it was worked on even prior to that by Alan Turing.
Yeah.
And we've had things that we used to call AI that we don't really call AI anymore, like the software that used to land aeroplanes. We used to call that artificial intelligence, and now we don't. You could say like Siri or Alexa, we call those artificial intelligence, but we've coined them as different phrases now.
Yeah, I think it used to be an all-encompassing thing, like anything that was slightly intelligent.
Yeah,
people just used to jump on AI, and even when people hired data scientists, they just hired like generic data scientists.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas now I think there's way more.
It's a bit more detailed.
A bit more siloed. Like some people have got expertise in this, some people have expertise in that. Like I think it's actually we're in a better place than when you were at that conference. I think people are starting. I think it's got a bit more mature.
I mean, the Turing test is basically if you can't tell the difference between a computer and a human, then it should be considered AI. But I think the rate of advancement is it's extraordinary.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Fast forward 50 years, everyone might be out of a job because everything is automated. The way we deliver all of the things we need, as a human race.
My boss was telling me the other day, not Gordie, Sam, was telling me that Uber apparently are just hedging their bets that nobody will have cars in like 20, 30, 40 years or whatever it is.
It'll all be self-driving.
And that's when they'll make their money, because they'll be the people who's either they must be developing it in the background or whatever. Like that's where they're going to swoop in and just be the absolute global leader in transport. Like right now they're just doing it because
I think it's difficult to know. Like in 1903 we flew our first Wright brothers flew the first aeroplane, and then 66 years later we were on the moon. Like that's insane in terms of the rate.
It's just a ridiculous rate of progression.
So fast forward another sort of 50, 60 years, I've literally no idea.
And that's quite fun.
I would be scared to guess.
There was like people have all these meetings about like what is the world going to look like in we're in 2020, so people are saying like 2030, 2040, 2050. Like I don't think we know what it's going to look like in 2025.
No, yeah.
Like why are we trying to guess 20, 30 years? Because some of the stuff is just mental.
Yeah. No, I mean like in the 60s, if you talked about the concept of the internet, they would have thought you were insane. And that was 50, 60 years ago. So
it's one of those things as well that there's the flip side of that. Everyone said by 2020 we'd be driving like hoverboards.
Oh yeah.
And so people, nobody ever gets it right. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. But what did you think? What does 2020, the rest of it, look like in your role? I suppose for ANS, but also just generally with kind of AI and data. Like, do you see much more of the same that you've been doing in terms of cool projects? Anything that you see?
I think we're going to see, enterprise organisations embrace digital more and more, and really look to digital to achieve their business goals and. Me personally, I think I'll be working on a lot more data projects, a lot more AI focused projects.
Does it scare you if the companies you go into don't have a digital approach, or is that where ANS kind of rubs their hands and they get to like have a real go at something new?
I think it's rare that you don't when businesses aren't looking at digital as a way to innovate or as a way to improve their customer staff experience. One thing my boss, my CTO always talks about is the death of the 5-year IT strategy. as a business, we used to try and get our hands on the 5-year IT strategy of our customers, so we could plan and adapt our own service offering.
Do they just not have
for our
customers?
Need
5-year strategies anymore?
Yeah, you're just seeing less and less of that as coming back to, I suppose, doing a full circle back to the rate of change in technology and how perhaps you're able to maybe get a better education being self-taught.
You can't really predict 5 years down the line, so what's the point in
having
a 3 hour
the curriculum is rewritten every 4 years? I would in certain verticals within technology, I would argue it's perhaps out of date by the time it's even delivered. But I might be showing my ignorance there, because as I said, I've never actually been to university. So
nobody fact checks anything on the podcast, so it's fine. We can just make it up. You said loads more data projects. Do you think that anyone can make use of AI from a company perspective? So I'm thinking, like, if you're the owner of a large stonemason company outside Manchester, can they use their data to get better results?
I think almost every organisation can use data to get better results. The reason I think I will end up working on, or ANS will work on a lot more data focused projects, is because I think the cloud gives the ability to structure data and host data in a way that is much more difficult when you're doing it on premise. A lot of the customers that I speak to want to achieve a single view of their customer, whether that be to improve your operational efficiency, or whether that be so you can draw better business insight. The challenge is extracting those data sets from various different siloed systems.
Yeah, is that one of your biggest things, where you go into a company and there's just data everywhere? So obviously that's great.
Yeah.
But you need to work out, where is it, what is it,
and also,
is it useful?
And also understand, exactly, is it useful, and what do you need it for?
Yeah, we've had that with customers who want to hire a data scientist because they have lots of data, and they do. But if you don't really know what
you need from your data, or what you want,
is one part of it really important, and it will result in more sales, and the rest of it's just stuff you don't really need.
Because the data really is just a tool. It's a tool that you're going to use to make a better, more informed business decision, or it's going to be a tool that you use to enrich and enhance your business applications.
Yeah.
I think, coming back to your question around AI and whether it can be applicable, I think it is applicable to every organisation. There's value and benefit that you can gain from it. You might not know exactly where that is at the moment, but that's something that a partner like ANS would help with. I suppose identify those areas that you could perhaps benefit from that technology. Especially
if they don't have an in-house technology team, I think that's quite an important distinction as well. I think everyone assumes data science means technology, which obviously it does when you're doing it. But loads of companies don't have the need for IT in their business, other than maybe someone to support the system they use.
Sure, yeah, and I think some organisations have that view that as technology becomes bigger and more integral, there's a lot more people required, I think, in order to be able to deliver a lot of digital projects. So whether you want that in-house or not, I suppose it depends on the strategic direction of the business. But I
just think there's so many businesses that don't need technology teams, they need help with technology, which I think was where obviously someone like you guys can come in and almost show them what's possible.
No, that's the fun bit though. That's
the great bit of your job. That's the
creative bit. But I think where I'm seeing AI applied most is around stuff like predictive analytics, certainly, or really around some of the cognitive services that you can leverage in cloud, such as real-time translation services, or image recognition. We're seeing a lot around facial recognition now, and I know that's a hot topic around some of the ethics.
Let's get into that. What do you think? What's your opinion?
I think really it comes down to transparency with the customer. If you're recording someone's face, most people are going to be put up a big be objective to that. However, if they can understand why you're doing it, and understand that there is a value to them, whether it be around security or providing a better shopping experience as you walk into a supermarket, let's say, and then they're using facial recognition to perhaps advertise more appropriate products to you. I don't know.
I've seen the one where you walk past like a billboard in Arndale, and it'll say like, "Oh, Liam, you should go up to the JD Sports because they'll know that I like trainers."
Yeah,
like,
and that could be scary to most people. But if they understand, perhaps why that's happening and the technologies that's being used, and it's being the data is going to be secured in the right way and used in the right way. Yeah, some people would be open to it.
I don't think anyone would disagree that facial recognition cameras for safety in the streets of like Manchester, Edinburgh, London is a bad idea. I think what people would probably argue is that how is it stored?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you selling it to third parties to pay for the cameras? Like stuff like that. Like that's where I think people would get pissed off at it, but not. I don't think the theory behind it is bad. And the shopping one's a bit weird. I don't know. I suppose there is people that would just be a sucker for marketing. Like if it popped up saying, "Look, you should buy these new headphones," you're like, oh, maybe I should.
The question is, would you like to see adverts that are personalised to you and relevant to you, or not?
That's what it's like on Amazon as well. Like you look at one thing and then you've got a bunch of recommended ads, and you're like, "Oh, fine, I'll buy it." So it definitely works.
Yeah. Some people find it, a bit too much though. So
what do you think of well, it's not really a question, but you mentioned the translation stuff. I read something about, I think it was Google, that if you have the headphones in and you're speaking a different language, it will just instantly translate.
Yeah, sure. That's all really really
that's insane.
Again, what the cloud brings is the ability to build applications at a much faster rate, but then also leverage all of the amazing cognitive services that the likes of Azure and AWS supply. Yeah. And it's the commercial model that underpins that. That means that businesses can use it because it's effectively SaaS. It's a pay per user consumption model. I mean, you can actually do machine learning. You can install machine learning software on premise infrastructure. However, it's very expensive in comparison to what you can do in cloud. Yeah,
that was one of the things. So one of the guys that's been on before, Adam, he works for a kind of Microsoft focus consultancy. But one of his points was, and it's kind of similar to what you're saying, like Microsoft and Amazon are spending so much money on building these cognitive services, building these cloud platforms. Like you don't have to go and do it. Like you don't have to build something from scratch anymore.
You don't need to know how to write your own neural network.
No, make use of the person that's spending billions. Yeah, but apply it correctly.
Yeah, like with the translation service, like especially if you've got customers that span the world and you speak lots of different languages, to offer that functionality, is made much simpler and much more cost effective by the likes of your cloud players.
Yeah, because you can. I mean, I don't think people can do that themselves to the same level. So you can make, like you said, you make use of it, and you don't have to worry about being on premise. You don't have to worry about that stuff.
It's just about understanding what value that can deliver, because it could be increased sales conversion, or better user experience, or more first-time fixes because people are able to communicate with you in their native language.
Yeah, you're not going back and forward all the time.
Yeah, but I think it's an exciting part of technology. What's
your like absolute AI aspiration in terms of like if something could happen?
Sure.
It doesn't even have to be work related. If something that AI could do, what would it be? To even have that written down, that came off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because there's like so many good answers to that. I could be really altruistic and say that it would solve all environmental issues perhaps, or I could be more focused around like the longevity of the human race and say that AI could figure out how to reverse the process of aging cells, so that we can live longer. But I think in the short term, advancements in genetic engineering coupled with AI could result in some really exciting stuff happening around healthcare. So I think in the not too distant near future, we'll see AI and genetic engineering used to solve a lot of like hereditary diseases, a lot of things that we struggle to do without without those two technology
It's
breakthroughs.
it's the pace, right, and the volume you can deal with when it comes to technology. You can just, it's just you just can't do it.
I mean, there's an AI that's been developed which is better than the world's best human pathologists at predicting lung cancer survival.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
which is really, really exciting. And AI has been looked at within the healthcare system in the UK to improve the time it takes to diagnose.
They're even looking at it for like coronavirus now, because obviously that spread is insane.
Yeah, there was a startup I read about the other day. That
could they do something to help predict either? I don't know if it was predicting where it might go,
predicting the pattern of growth. It was. Yeah.
So it's just could they use
Weren't they
that?
based in Scotland as well? I'm sure.
Everything that comes out of Scotland, so probably. It was a much more sensible answer than I was anticipating, which I like. I thought you were going to go like full on. I don't know what I thought.
I mean, it's everywhere now. AI. I'm seeing it more and more. Across all sectors. There's an AI investment fund now, which is like outperforming all of the other fund managers. That
I think if you got in at the right time on that, like they'll be just sweeping up. Do you think stuff? So we always talk about this in the podcast as well, but like the stuff that makes the news.
Yeah.
So driverless cars people taking your job, like robots taking your jobs, like blah 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 blah. Do you think that stuff is going to happen, or do you think that's just the stuff that like people like to talk about, and in reality it'll be the healthcare stuff, it'll be all the other things we've already talked about?
It's all happening now. I read something the other day, and it basically was talking about when you go through a revolution, you only really notice it after it's happened. Yeah.
Nobody knows it's happening.
Nobody knows it's happening. It'll be like, oh right, that's automated now, or oh right, that's an AI that's doing that now, and it'll be like, I think it'll be very similar with things like self-driving. All of a sudden, it'll be like, wow, everyone has got a self-driving vehicle.
I hope not. I like driving.
Well, you probably have the option to do one of these.
I said this to my boss as well, and he talked about Uber, and I said I like driving, and he was like, yeah, but some people are really bad at it. So if everyone was self-driving, it would, in theory, make it safer. And I was like, all right, fair enough, you've got me there.
You probably have the option to do both, don't you? I would think.
I don't think you could drive about in like 2.
People would have said the same thing back in the day. They'd be like, "Oh, I love riding my horse. I don't want a car."
One of these stupid Fords.
And you can still ride your horse, can't you?
It's not the dual carriageway.
No, not the dual carriageway.
I don't know. I think the way we're going, I don't think in 10, 20, 30 years time that you could drive around a 2-litre car while everyone's in like a hybrid self-driver. You'd be that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you're right. I think that's an amazing point, that you don't really know you're in a massive a massive kind of like shift. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's happening now. I think across all sectors, all verticals.
Even a more basic thing like the IoT stuff. Like my mum and dad are in their 60s, and they've got Alexa hooked up all over the house. Yeah. And they're getting a light switch turned on by plugs. Again, they're not technology people.
The IoT industry is set to grow drastically. Again, IoT and has been as a technology, let's say, has been around again a long time.
Yeah, it's not a new thing, is it?
It's not a new thing.
The technology is catching up to help them implement IoT.
I absolutely love it.
I think your example of hospitals, schools,
meeting rooms is another really good one. We're
huge buildings. Yeah. I was one of those things. This might not be relevant, but it drives me insane when I'm in Manchester or Edinburgh and it's 9 o'clock at night and there's full office buildings with all their lights on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just either it's a manual process or the automation process isn't very good or whatever. I don't really know the reasoning behind it, but surely if you had all the smart technology people have, it should just be in complete darkness.
Have a motion sensor, and then as soon as someone walks out the room, you just turn the lights off.
Yeah. But our sales director doesn't like the fact that you have lights on during the day. So if you're in your house, you don't have the lights on during the day. Why do offices do it? And
true.
I don't know.
Very true.
It's just people do it. Alright, I think we covered loads.
Brill, thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. Excited to see. Will there be more stuff about the university project you were talking about? Will that come out?
Lots of stuff to come out over the next few months.
Where do we find you on social media, and where do we find ANS?
My Twitter handle is Grimes was taken. ANS is at ANS Group, I believe. Or you can check out the site, which is just ans.co.uk, and all of our projects and things we get up to are on there.
Nice. Have you got any speaking engagements lined up?
After this, yeah, there's a few things in the diary.
Nice.
Up in Manchester and in London, actually.
Nice. So people can see you all over.
Yeah, I usually post that kind of thing out on Twitter anyway. So
yeah, nice.
If you follow me on there, you can see
Sounds good. Alright, perfect. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Cheers, mate. Thanks for listening, everyone. That was fun. Thanks to Cathcart Associates for sponsoring it. I really couldn't do it without them. And thanks to Luke for coming on. What a busy man. I had a great time catching up with him. We've not spoken in a couple of years, but honestly, it felt like being back in a pub at 3 a.m. in Manchester, shooting the shit, basically. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you found the story inspiring. And I'll speak to you all again soon.